Thank you very much. I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming out this evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about truth from an Indigenous perspective. And what I'm about to share with you tonight, you normally wouldn't hear or see in institutions because a lot of this information has been hidden. We're talking about power, we're talking about domination, we're talking about genocide, we're talking about archaic barbaric laws, we're talking about ideologies, methodologies. It's really going to be enlightening to be able to have this conversation, let me say this again, in its proper context. It's important that we talk about these stories in its proper context. It's so important that we talk about truth. And then, once we see this and witness this, and then we're going to talk about what's the alternative to change the systems. What is the alternative? And we'll have those discussions as we go on further in the discussion. But what I want to bring attention to is this film that I'm about to share with you. I want to give you a brief synopsis of where this all established. There's a gentleman by the name of Stephen T. Newcomb. He is an indigenous person. He's a Lenape, and he has dedicated over 45 years of his life unmasking the domination code at the United Nations level. So he has extensive knowledge. He's a legal scholar, and he's just asking. He's really exposing this to the world because the world needs to know this stuff because it's all been hidden. And the language that's being used here today, I think it's very important that we pay attention to the language that's being used. Because language is how we view the world. And that is the reason why I feel that language is so important. Because there are so many different concepts and teachings in language. So words you're going to hear today are law of humanity. They must be destroyed. Manifest destiny. Genocide. Genocidal principles. Subhuman. And when I say subhuman, let's put it in the category. Now, first and foremost, when Europeans first saw indigenous people, you can imagine, and also when indigenous people first saw Europeans, can you imagine what was running through their minds at that time? Think about that for a second. So the idea was they put them in a category. They're infidels. They're Saracens. They're pagans. They're subhuman. And you're going to hear words like beast, ascendancy. And then you're going to hear some archaic barbaric laws that are still in place today. Let me give you an example. 1823 Johnson versus McIntosh. That basic ruling in 1823 Johnson versus McIntosh, basically what that was saying was, this is going to define title of land. So basically what they're saying is, indigenous people throughout the world only have a right to occupy. They do not have a title of land. Because they're subhuman. They can't possibly own land. Terra nullius. You'll hear that language. So it's important to pay attention to the language that's being used. And also, unbaptized people. Federal Indian law. Doctrine of domination. Assimilation. Heathen. Extinguished title and the people. Sherrill versus Oneida Nation, 2017. That's a recent decision. Matter of fact, Ginsburg actually made this decision based on the Doctrine of Discovery. So they're still using this archaic barbaric law to be able to continue this genocidal principle. And also, you'll hear dehumanization systems. So we're going to hear a real good view of systems. And basically the Doctrine of Discovery and Domination and its effects on the Wabanaki and other original peoples worldwide. This is a reevaluation of Columbus' voyages to the Caribbean. The doctrine has formed the legal basis for taking of Wabanaki land and most lands inhabited by the original peoples of America, Africa, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. In 2007, the United Nations condemned the Doctrine of Discovery in the preamble to the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Every member of the United Nations was in support, except Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States. Join us to explore the facets of Maine and the American history and the current evil and medieval religious concept serving as the basis for United States federal Indian law and United States international laws. When Christopher Columbus first set foot on the white sands of Guanahani Island, he performed a ceremony to take possession of the land for the king and the queen of Spain. Acting under the international laws of Western Christendom, although the story of Christopher Columbus' discovery has taken on mythical proportions in most of the Western world, few people are aware this act of possession was based on the religious doctrine now known as the Doctrine of Discovery. Even fewer people today realize this 5 centuries later. The United States government still uses this archaic Judeo-Christian doctrine to deny the rights of Native American Indians. 500 years of injustice, the legacy of 15th century prejudice. So the legal infrastructure is supporting this genocide. And they're still citing old archaic barbaric laws today, right now. So when we're talking about sovereignty, it's a long distance to get to because of these systems that we're going to be talking about. In order to be able to get through these systems, what we got to do is we got to have community. We got to come together and do what is right, regardless of what other people are watching and being influenced by others. Because there are people going to influence us in many ways and try to infiltrate our minds to do the wrong thing. And that's why it's so important for us to be able to stand firm on our beliefs and our systems that we have in place. So here's a real wonderful opportunity to be able to see historical truth. And I use these words history. It's basically his story. And that is the people that are in power at the time. And how do we change those narratives? And we'll talk a little bit more about that once we witness what we're about to witness. So pay attention to the language that's being used. It's a very, very emotional film. And I know that notice there's no children in the room, which I normally talk and remind people of the graphics in this film and the language that's being used. So it's be appropriate for children. So I notice there isn't any children here, so I just want to bring that out just in case if there are some that come in. So I guess we're ready for the film, and just relax, and a lot of information here. Take it all in, and we'll have a good discussion after. So thank you so much. You'll notice what I have up here, and the reason why I have this up here is to show you a part of the struggles that we're having, and we've been having for quite some time. And this is all, nothing new to our people, what's happening. And you'll notice what's happening here is what's happening today, right now as we speak, about power and domination and how things are unfolding. So it doesn't matter if it's the left wing or the right wing, it's the same bird, is what I say. It's about treating each other with respect, caring for one another as human beings, and not dehumanizing people. That's the message. I want to share with you briefly about an individual that has, because there are good people. Like I know there's good people in this room. But you got to find them. It's not an easy journey. But there is an individual that has dedicated his life to research. A gentleman by the name of Don Jellis. In the 1960s, he actually researched the dustbins of history to unveil the inequities, the inhumane policies that were carried out. The Passamaquoddy people had a legitimate claim to 2/3 of the state of Maine in a 1794 treaty. But because of these systems that we're talking about in power and domination, what they done was the state of Maine set up Don Jellis. They set him up. They planted 5 marijuana joints on the individual. And they came in and they took him out of the scene because he was making some strides in the federal court systems. He was making strides in the state court systems. And he was really bringing attention to these issues. And we had a legitimate claim. That even prompted the United States government, the President of the United States, to come to Bangor, Maine to speak on the issue. That was President Carter. It was a big decision at that time, but they rammed it right down our throats. And then the last minute, they made some provisions in there that protected their power and domination. So this individual, Don Jellis, ended up having to leave this country because he got set up and he got disbarred and could no longer litigate the case. He ended up leaving to Israel. So what we did was, some of us that were involved in this case and knew about this case and kept in contact with the family and everything was going on, we decided to submit a posthumous exoneration for Don Jellis. And we went to Augusta and testified on his behalf. And guess what? It was granted. And the governor of the state of Maine at the time, which was Janet Mills, made a public statement. She said the case had merit. Of course it had merit.
Yes.
Of course it had merit. But he was set up. So these are all part of the systems that we're talking about. And I'm only just going to name a few of these things that are happening in historical timelines on Wabanaki Maine relations. Just briefly, because I know it's getting late. In 1095, Paper Bulls Terra Nullius gives kings and princesses the right to discover lands and take possessions. 1455. Also, weren't even able to become citizens till 1924. So all these different factors are real factors. 1924, Congress enacts citizens. The native people can become citizens. 1924. As the first original inhabitants of this region. Wouldn't even become citizens. Wouldn't even be able to vote till 1957. But see, these are all part of systems. And now we think about what is the alternative, right? When we talk about sovereignty, when we talk about self-governance, what is the alternative? Well, the alternative really is to get involved. Come from here. Come right from here. Go to your legislators. Get more active. Do the right things, because we have a legal system that's against us right now as we speak. We don't have a right to a title of land. We don't have a right to occupy. That's a serious case, especially when they're talking about sovereignty. Because right now we only have limited sovereignty. We're like a municipality. Okay, all that language that's being used. That's all it is. But at this time, I'll just take some questions, and I know it's late, so if there's any questions, I certainly would entertain those. And I really appreciate your attention. I know there's a lot of information here to take in tonight. Some of you may have seen this before, some of you may not, and I really hope that it was educational for you, and I certainly would entertain any questions.
I could go on forever, as you know, because we talked on the phone for 2 hours.
Exactly.
Discovery does not mean you found something. in the European sense of, actually they're in the Renaissance, which is far more barbaric than the Middle Ages ever were.
Exactly.
Discovery is a scientific principle in which you locate, not find, locate something, you map it, you fence it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you exercise dominion there. All you have to do is look at our town tax maps and you see this. So this idea of dominion. So let's go to 1493 and Terra, the papal bull.
Mm-hmm.
So Alexander's in Rome and he draws a line on a map of what the European intellectual class, because the peasantry doesn't have any idea what there is. He draws a line around the world. This is for Spain, this is for Portugal. Then 2 years later, Treaty of Tordesillas, they say, well, the Spanish are in the Philippines and the Portuguese are in Brazil, so we'll just shift that line a little bit so that Brazil gets to be Portuguese and the Philippines get. And these people are sitting on the other side of the world just drawing these maps. But to them, it's the scientific principle of cartography which gives ownership.
Exactly. And the other thing is too, what you're saying is basically it's his story, you know, and then that's how he told his story, and also the barbaric laws that we use to be able to have the domination for that particular area. So these systems really is the same systems that we're dealing with today. It hasn't changed. And we're dealing with it today as we speak. It's unfolding right now in our faces. So it doesn't matter who's in power. It's just a matter of these principles and these systems that are in place that are moving and driving them, as we all know. Any other questions?
So in a perfect world, what is the remedy that Native Americans would seek at this point in the history of this country?
I think it's real important that we have respect for the earth, to take care of the earth, because your generations ahead of you are going to rely on this earth, and we're not taking care of it. We have a responsibility to each other and build this relationship with one another, and that these are our relatives. It's not just a resource. There's a distinct difference between the concepts. It's all in the language. Let me give you an example of one. Mortgage, right? Mort is death, right? Gauge is grip. So I got to pay my death grip this month. It's all part of that system and that language. Let me give you one more. America. A lot of people, they say they want to introduce me to Native American. And I explain to them why I'm not American. Ame is love and command. Rika is riches and wealth. That's a different concept. It's a different relationship with one another, with the four-legged. You notice how they talk about the four-legged, the two-legged, to dominate them. Does that make any sense to anyone? And they're using biblical terms. We're all free, remember? They're not free. The salmon aren't free. They can't even go up the river to do what they normally do for thousands of years, to their natural habitats. But because of power and domination and systems and greed, that's the poison. That's the poison. Is greed.
These 7 rules or laws for living that were mentioned.
Yes.
Where can I find a copy of that?
I can get you a copy for it, and I'll give you my card, and I'll give you a copy of all of that.
Okay, good.
Yes, absolutely.
I just finished reading The Conquest of Paradise,
Mm-hmm.
and I would highly recommend it as a pretty good summary of everything
Yeah.
we've talked about. The Conquest of Paradise.
Also, I just want to, thank you very much for adding that, and also I just want to reiterate this book here. Pagans in the Promised Land is a very, very well done book. It's by Stephen T. Newcomb, so I highly recommend this book. Original, I believe it's originalfirstnations.com, I believe you can get this book. Originalfirstnations.com, you can actually purchase this book. It's a very, very well done book, so I highly recommend this book, Pagans in the Promised Land by Stephen T. Newcomb. Any other questions?
I got a book suggestion, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by Binder Loria. That's an excellent book.
Yes, very good.
50 years old.
This movie, this documentary,
Yes.
is it available?
Yes, it's also on originalfirstnations.com as well. And also, I just want to, on behalf of the Wabanaki people, I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming here this evening. I know it's a lot to take in, and I know it's a really sensitive subject, you know, and I know it's something that we all need to go and do this together, side by side, to get a deeper understanding of the truth. And I think it's real important that we really, I'm so glad that you're open to that, the idea of that, you know, we embrace each other, you know, and have a sense of knowing what's really happening. Because this has all been hidden. Some of you may not have seen this before. Say, wow. So I know everywhere I've gone, many institutions, colleges, you know, they're in awe because this is stuff that this never been exposed to. But we're seeing it unfold today as we speak. So, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. I don't know what the right word is. It's praise for what you are doing with your language, Passamaquoddy language. English is not my native language. German and Sicilian were, and they got ripped right out of my mouth, and I don't remember any of them. And if my great-grandparents, I can read Shakespeare with no trouble, but if my great-grandparents came back from the dead and walked into this room now, I could not speak with them. What you are doing is so important.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing before you leave. Remember this, language is not lost. Language was systematically taken. We got to put it in its proper context. I know that's tough, but we really need to put it and pinpoint it for what it is. And that's the reason why I'm doing the work that I do, to revitalize our language. It's very important. And I can't do it alone. We have to do this as a community. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you.